What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, it's 7:09. I'm Austin Peterson. Welcome to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Sorry for the late start today. We might have a little bit of choppy video on the stream. Hopefully the audio will be good for you. We are having some technical issues with the internet this morning. Hopefully things will get solved as we work our way through the stream. Let's start the show though. First at 7:10, is the American dream dead? Average costs for the house with a picket fence have exploded in recent years, and my generation, the millennials, will be the first in generations to live below their parents' means economically. Is there any reason for optimism, or does the black pill come for everyone? We'll discuss. Then, are teachers actually underpaid? Screaming headlines in recent weeks have claimed that there's a national teacher shortage, and the problem has to do with pay incentives. We'll discuss whether or not that's the case at 7:22. And at 7:35, we have Spike Cohen to discuss the Yeshiva University LGBT case. Spike will also go into the trend of conservatives declaring war on libertarians. And at 8:03, Ms. Camelia Peterson joins us to discuss why libertarianism was trending on Twitter yesterday. Spoiler alert, it's not good. But when has it ever been good to be trending on Twitter? And at 8:35, it's Big Brain Time with JD Tuccili to talk about the prepper mindset, why it thrived before and during the pandemic, and how even the government wants you to get into this mindset. All that and more on this episode of the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. All right, let's get the program going this morning. Yesterday, I saw that the average four-year tuition comparison charts came out from 1968 to 2022. The average four-year tuition cost in the United States, if you want to go to a four-year college, in 1968, it was $1,200. In 2022, this year, the average four-year tuition cost for a four-year university, $45,000. Yeah, and the average hospital cost to have a baby in 1968 would have been around $407. In 2022, the average hospital cost to have a baby now, $32,000. The average home prices in 1968, $24,700. In 2022, the average cost would have been, the average cost this year, $345,000. I've got a video here to play for you from our illustrious commander-in-chief, as well as some polling that's been done on how voters, this is an NBC poll, how voters view the handling of the economy between the Republicans and the Democrats. First, let's see if I can get that video popped up. We're having all kinds of issues today, if you can see here. GOP winning on the economy. Boom, boom, boom. Looks like our presidents. There we go. There we go. So let's play this clip from President Joe Biden from an interview that he did with 60 Minutes talking about the inflation rates.
Annual inflation rate came in at 8.3%. The stock market nosedived. People are shocked by their grocery bills. What can you do better and faster?
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective. Inflation rate month to month was just an inch. Hardly at all.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it's good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not. Maybe I can make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%.
It's the highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that. But guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months it hasn't spiked. It is just barely, it's been basically even.
So pause there for just a moment. Okay, so the president is saying that the inflation rate is staying steady, essentially that it was 8.2 before and then it's 8.3 now. But the issue here is that it did go up during his time in office by an enormous amount. Now, I know what a lot of people are listening to this are going to say. They're going to say, oh, well, a lot of that spending happened before President Biden. Yes, it's true, but you have to remember that the economy itself is organic and that a lot of what we call consumer sentiment, a lot of the pricing increases have to do with the fact of how people feel about what the future is going to be like. And so they raise prices, or they, if they have a consumer sentiment that's down, then prices can be increased because people are worried about their financial future. So they increase the prices. The president is trying to sort of paper over the obvious problems that he has with the economy right now. And if you can see the screen right now, just so you know, the video might be a little bit choppy. Hopefully the audio is good. If the audio is okay, I'd love it if you could send me a text, 573-319-1586. Let me know if I'm coming in loud and clear, because I can't monitor all of the chats, although I do my best to try and monitor as many of them as I can, trying to get us up on Rumble at the same time while we've been sort of limping to get on the show this morning to get things going. Hopefully things will clear up. The last time we had internet issues like this, they definitely did. You can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. Let us know if things are sounding good where you're listening to the show, or if you're having issues, just go ahead and send in a report. Let me know what you're seeing and what you're hearing. Love to hear from you. One of our listeners texted in this morning about Lily Tang Williams. I'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. One listener texted in and said, audio is good. Good. That's important. As long as you've got the good audio, then we can worry about the video a little bit later. Now, when it comes to like the housing prices and the increase in prices, the inflation, right? So we're all struggling now, right? And it's I think it's contributing to a rise in, not necessarily nihilistic thinking, right? Where nothing really matters. And, Chris Morrill over in the Facebook live stream, right? His way of thinking, right? Nothing really matters. Everything's going to hell, right? That's a very common theme. I mean, how often do you turn on like cable television, or how often do you see a clip from cable television and it's some kind of, like, for example, the title of this show, even I wasn't immune to going for the end of the American dream, asking that question, right? Have you taken the black pill? Which, if you don't know what the black pill is, essentially the black pill means that, that it's, nothing matters. There's nothing you can do that will change anything, right? And it deprives you of all positive thought, and it makes you want to try and, you get some kind of meaning out of this limited time that we have on life, right? It's not a red pill, where we call the red pill is, you sort of wake up to the reality that's around you, right? This Matrix reference. But a black pill is sort of like worse than the red pill. Like, you've woken up to the world around you, inflation is terrible, healthcare costs are terrible, Joe Biden is terrible, we have no future. That's the black pill. But I don't really buy into that. And maybe it's because there's something in my programming. I'm hardwired to be more optimistic, even though, my live stream video is crashing and the internet is sucking. And there's lots of reasons to, that if you look for the bad, my mom used to always say this, if you look for the bad, you will always find it. And I'll say this, I think that there are reasons to be optimistic for the future. And I asked that question of my Twitter followers yesterday. What's something to be optimistic about? What's something that you have to look forward to? And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. I'd like to hear your reasons for optimism and why you haven't taken the black pill. The opposite of the black pill is the white pill. And the white pill is someone who finds the good in things, finds the silver lining in the cloud, has a reason for optimism, has a reason to live, has a reason to look forward to the future. Now, I could list off a million things that are negative, but it's a lot harder to find the good. And that makes me think that there's some kind of an evolutionary set in our minds that, it's a survival mechanism to always be looking for the negative, right? In order to avoid danger. But you can't forget that there are plenty of reasons to enjoy life. Lots of good things to look forward to. Someone texted or tweeted at me yesterday talking about how their son wants to be a lawyer so he can defend the Constitution. And he saw that as a reason for optimism. So I'd love to hear from you on what your reasons for optimism are. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. I'm going to go to commercial break and I'm going to try and get us up on Rumble. And I'm also going to try and solve some of our internet problems while we're here. Hopefully these things will clear out as we work through the day. Thanks so much for sticking by me on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
It's morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Welcome back at 7:24. I'm Austin Peterson on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Lots more great content to go. We've got Spike Cohen joining us this morning at 7:35 on the program. We'll talk to him about the Yeshiva University LGBT case, as well as why so many conservatives are declaring war on libertarians. Also, I saw my friend Tony Allegro over on the Facebook live stream is asking if anybody had invested in Rumble yesterday when they went public. Yeah, actually I did, and we're going to talk a little bit about that at 7:51, this video streaming platform that I'm investing my time, my energy, and my hard-earned dollars on. We'll talk about that at 7:51 this morning, but hopefully we'll also get ourselves up on Rumble. If you're tuning into the live stream this morning and seeing that the video is a little bit choppy, I apologize for that. We've got a little bit of a slow internet problem this morning, but hopefully the audio is coming in straight and clear. I am seeing that people testing the audio saying it sounds good. They're texting in at 573-319-1586. Quest this morning texted in and said that he's optimistic for the future because he's a man of agency. He gets things done rather than let life happen to me and it works. That is a brilliant statement. Actually taking an active role in your life rather than sitting back and letting things happen to you. How many of us have had people that we've known in our lives that always had an excuse for why things never went their way? They, bad luck Brian, if you will. Bad things seems to always happen to them. Nothing interesting ever happens to them, and they endlessly complain about it. Well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they let things happen to them. Things happen to them in their lives rather than them taking an active role in making good things happen. Because bad things happen to you in your life without you asking, right? If you do nothing, bad things are guaranteed to happen. But how often does something good happen to you that you didn't play an active role in making that good thing happen? I mean, it's kind of like the lottery. You can't win if you don't play, right? But if you do play, you're probably going to lose anyway. But it's kind of that mindset. One listener texted in this morning and said that gas prices are artificially low right now due to the strategic reserve. When Trump was in office during the pandemic, we had ships with nowhere to put their excess fuel. #bigger tanks. A lot of people are wishing that Trump would return. And, it'll be interesting to see if he decides to run again for president of the United States. What do you think? Do you think he should? Do you think, please?
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please, Donald Trump, please save me. Please save me, Donald Trump. Please. I'm asking you. Please save me.
Please.
Please save me. Please
save me, Donald Trump. One listener texted in this morning and said that I look forward to hearing witness to the success of my posterity in spite of the government's attempts to achieve some despotic hellscape. That's funny. My pills I identify with are red, black, and clown. This episode brought to you by BetterHelp. Feeling sad? Talk to someone. Bearing witness, staying autocorrect. Listeners can text in at 573-319-1586. I'm asking for people to text me in and tell me what's something that they have to be optimistic for, despite the fact that the economy is crap, despite the fact that our commander-in-chief is an absolute nightmare. There are some things that are, cases for optimism. I'm gonna put up if the video will actually work, I'm going to put up a poll for you up here on the screen for you to take a look at. Let me transition over to my screen there. There we go. Okay, boom, popped up on screen. You can see the difference. This is a new NBC poll that came out just yesterday. And what it shows is the how voters favor Republicans for border and economic issues and Democrats for abortion and health care. You can see there on the left-hand side of this chart, and I'll explain it to you if you're listening in versus looking. But when it comes to border security, that's the one issue where voters massively favor Republicans over Democrats. Look at this. This is the biggest jump. 56% of voters favor Republicans for border issues versus 20% for Democrats. That ought to be a wake-up call to the Democratic Party for their stance on immigration, I would say. But, that would assume that you would be able to get through to them. And then on the economy, 47% of voters favored Republicans over Democrats, 28%. I mean, the economy is what people vote for. Border security is probably up there, but the economy is absolutely the most important thing that people go and vote for. Now, when it comes to what Democrats lead on Republicans for, abortion and healthcare, 47% of voters prefer the Democratic Party when it comes to abortion versus 25% of Republicans. And then on healthcare, 44% of voters prefer Democrats to 24% Republicans on healthcare. That to me says that Republicans really need to get their act together when it comes to their messaging on those issues, because while I agree with the Republican Party's stance on abortion, on healthcare it's a little bit dodgy because libertarians are more extreme free marketeers when it comes to the healthcare system than Republicans tend to be. So in that sense, the Republicans are going to offer some kind of a watered down socialist light view of a healthcare system that typically is not going to be in line with what I believe. So, how we message something like that to the American people, it's a question that we won't be able to answer here. Maybe Spike Cohen will be able to answer for it. We'll have him on the show coming up next. Hopefully he'll be on video. If not, I'll definitely have him on backup on the phone. So we'll definitely have Spike Cohen coming up next here on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning. It's 7:36. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. My next guest, highly anticipated, I know everybody's excited to have him on today, is Spike Cohen. He's going to talk to us a little bit about that issue at Yeshiva University, as well as a case he's working on for police brutality. And I want to ask him about why conservatives have declared war on libertarians. He's joining us on the phone right now. Good morning, Spike. How are you today, sir? Yep. Thanks so much for coming on, Spike. So, so I guess first things first, Spike, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little bit of details on this issue that you're working on in police brutality that your buddy Brian was telling me about yesterday.
At the local, we've been working on all sorts of issues, out of control zoning boards, out of control city councils, and one that we've been working on, the one that we've been getting kind of publicizing the most, is an issue in Gastonia, North Carolina, with an out of control city council and police department. Long story short, a homeless veteran was assaulted and wrongfully arrested by the police. They tased the service dog. They maintained that he and the dog were in the wrong for the better part of a year to block the body cam footage from public release. We finally got it released. It was worse than even what the veteran had remembered happened to him. And we're back at the next city council meeting today in Gastonia to call for justice for this veteran and prosecution for the officers who committed crimes against him.
Is there any video of this incident? I mean, has it been fairly well documented?
Oh, there is 8 hours of various officers' body cam footage, which we distilled down into a 45-minute video that's on my YouTube channel and my Facebook, that details and shows that everything that the veteran said, that he was complying with the police, he had not broken any laws, his dog was no threat to anyone, and everything he had said was correct. It also showed that they had intimidated and threatened witnesses, lied to reporting supervisors. They lied to him because the dog ended up dying because it ran away. They lied to him that the dog was being held by animal control. They lied to animal control that they already had the dog. It was way worse than he even knew or remembered. And now and it makes sense why why the DA fought so hard to block it. Thankfully, the judge ruled on our side, and now we're pushing for justice.
Glad to hear that one. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Spike Cohen. Spike was the Libertarian Party's vice presidential candidate in the 2020 elections. Spike, I'd like to switch topics a little bit here and talk to you about something that, when I ran for president as a Libertarian became a big issue. It was this whole issue of, private property, religious liberty. And at the time we had a little phrase, it was bake the cake. And
oh gosh,
this has sort of come up again with Yeshiva University in New York,
yes.
which with this LGBT case, apparently a club on campus wants to be chartered. That's an LGBT club. Yeshiva University doesn't want it. It's it's a Jewish school, and so instead of allowing the LGBT group to be chartered, they've just shut down all the student clubs for now until they can kind of figure out what's going on. What's your take on this case?
Yeah, so first of all, they're not just a Jewish school. They are an Orthodox Jewish campus. Only kosher food is served on campus. They're closed on Shabbat or the Sabbath. There is required Torah study and segregation of men and women in their undergraduate schools. They are keeping this in the same way that an Orthodox Jewish household would keep their household. And even still, even despite being very Orthodox Jewish, they're still inclusive of LGBT students and faculty. They're not kicking out students or faculty. They're not even stopping them from gathering or getting together. They're just not officially sanctioning their group as an official student group. Yes, this is very much we say religious liberty, and it is a religious liberty issue, but it's also a freedom of association issue. Especially when you consider the fact that they're not even trying to stop gay or trans or LGBT students from attending or even gathering. They're just not giving official sanction to it. They were actually negotiating with this group before the lawsuit came from the state. And they said, you know what, at this point, this isn't about the LGBT union. This is about preserving our character as a Jewish organization or a religious organization.
Now, does Yeshiva University take state funds? Is that how is that why the government was able to sue them?
So I don't believe they take state funds. I know they have gotten some federal grants or state grants for things that they're a privately run campus. So obviously there are some students that have gotten Pell Grants and things like that. And this is where it gets murky, right? Because in terms of accepting public funds, like almost any private college, they're accepting public funds in the form of students with Pell Grants and things like that. But that's actually not why they're being sued. They're being sued because the New York State maintains that as a college, they're not allowed to have certain elements of freedom of association, and they're also alleging that they're not a religious organization, which means you have the New York State government deciding if something is Jewish enough, which means they could turn around and decide if they think something is Christian enough or Muslim enough. And to apply this sort of reverse religious test of a government deciding if something is or is not religious, I mean, there's all sorts of slippery slopes that could happen there. And this is why they're fighting it.
you're just tuning into the show, you can text us at 573-319-1586. We're speaking to Spike Cohen. Spike is the former Libertarian Party vice presidential candidate from the 2020 election. We're talking a little bit about the case with Yeshiva University. But, it's all about, to me, it's about freedom of association and private property rights. Now, Spike, we can't go back and we can't relitigate the 1963 Civil Rights Act, but, those are the laws that we live under right now. But I mean, do you agree with Yeshiva University, excluding LGBT people from being, chartered on campus there? Are those the views that you hold? Because, for me, when I supported the right of the Christian baker to not bake the cake, I didn't agree with his decision. I would bake the cake. But is this a case of you defending the freedom of someone even that you disagree with, or do you agree with them?
Well, no, I don't agree. First of all, I'm not even religiously, I was raised Jewish, but I'm not even religiously Jewish anymore. And if I ran a university, I wouldn't care if someone started a LGBT club or any other kind of club, as long as they're not directly harming anyone else. I'm very much a live or let live libertarian, right? But yes, this is very much me defending someone else's right to freely associate as they wish on their private property, in this case, based on their deeply held religious beliefs, which they have demonstrated in every single action they take or do not take. So that's absolutely what it is. And if I were to suddenly have Spike University, scary thought that would be, I would not be doing this action because it wouldn't be of a particular concern to me. But I don't have those same deeply held religious beliefs. They do.
Well, and that brings me to our final topic here, Spike, because what we're hearing now from the new movement on the right, the national conservative movement, are things like, we can't defend the rights of people who are at war with us, who want to destroy us. We can't defend the Second Amendment rights of the left because they will use the Second Amendment to take away our guns. We can't defend the free speech rights of the left because the left wants to cancel us and wants to shut us down on social media. And we have to, they've declared war against us. And so we have to do these kinds of things back to them. You see this, ideology being, coming out in a lot of these Trump people, Ron DeSantis and others, who are saying, that essentially the will to power, that, what's the point of having power if you're not willing to use it? And essentially their target number one are libertarians, people like yourself and myself, who they claim are responsible for child drag shows and, all of the lewdness in society that we see today. They see libertarians as weak and not effectual, warriors in the fight against radical progressivism. Now, in some sense, they're right that the left has declared war on us. But what's your take on, Steven Crowder and Alex Jones and many others, people who might have been, more friendly to our ideas a decade ago, now claiming to be anti-libertarian?
Well, it sounds like they've fallen directly into divide and conquer. They seem to have turned themselves unironically into the most foolish characters in the Lord of the Rings trilogies, the ones who thought that the Ring of Power would actually serve them at some point. And instead of trying to focus on smashing the Ring of Power so that no one is holding it, they have fallen, it sounds like they've fallen full bore into the idea of, well, no, we actually need to grow and expand the power, or at least allow its continued expansion as long as we're in control of it. They're not the first ones to try this. And frankly, that's where the what we call mainstream establishment Republicans or establishment conservatives, that's what they started as. People who got into office and said, well, maybe we can use this for our ends. And then, they end up turning into Mitch McConnell. So that's my take on that, is that all roads to trying to grow or preserve the federal Leviathan power lead to people turning into Mitch McConnell and John McCain and Chuck Schumer. So, Godspeed, I guess.
What do you do, Spike? I don't want to make people bake the cake, but what do you do when you're someone who not only loses access to social media accounts, which you and I could say, is a frivolity, but many people that we know that, and I don't agree with a lot of what these people have to say, but many of these people, Spike, are losing access to their bank accounts.
Yes.
It's sort of biblical in that sense that they're not able to transact or do business. That's a real danger to their liberty.
That is a real danger, and it is precisely because of the Ring of Power, as I'm calling it, of government being able to call those kinds of shots. We look at a most recent example of that is credit card companies that are now adding some international classification standard for purchases at gun stores, which is going to be very easily used for a very crudely made backdoor gun registry for the federal government. Well, it's very obvious that this was done under the pressure of New York City and New York state governments. And the reason they did it was because the New York City and state governments control Wall Street. And if they don't scratch their back on this one, they're not going to get their back scratched when they need it on something else. And that's a perfect example of a power that needs to be reduced, reformed, or in some cases eliminated. And to say, no, actually, we need to have control of that power, and then that way we can use it against our enemies on the left. Again, all that's going to end up leading to is if they ever actually do get in charge, they will have done so by giving more credence to the idea that government should have this power, which means they're going to be governing over a bunch of people that demand more control over their lives. And that's going to lead to the exact same policies that we have now. They're not the first people to say, no, we need to use this power against our enemies instead of trying to eliminate or reduce the power in the first place. And all roads lead to just a continued growth of power and all of us getting harmed as a result.
This is good stuff, Spike. Where can people find out more about you and your campaigns for liberty, Spike?
So my campaign for liberty right now is at youarethepower.net. That's the organization we started. We are working on growing the liberty movement by demonstrating to people in their local communities how liberty solutions work and helping to empower them to realize they have the power to take back the power in their local level now. And if you want to be a part of it, if you go to youarethepower.net, you can find out more about it. And I appreciate being on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Spike. Everybody really loves hearing from you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. All right, good stuff. What did you think? You know that thing that Spike was saying there when he was talking about, they're not the first people to sort of come on the ring of power and say, oh, we're going to use it for all these good purposes, and then later come and find out that, things didn't really end up as well as they'd hoped. It reminds me a little bit of this one quote by H.L. Mencken where he talks about, how freedom can morph into tyranny. Off goes the head of the king, and tyranny gives way to freedom. The change seems abysmal. And bit by bit, the face of freedom hardens, and by, it is the old face of tyranny, then another cycle, and another. But under the play of all these opposites, there is something fundamental and permanent, the basic delusion that men may be governed and yet be free. Lots more great show to come. Camelia Peterson will be joining us at 8:03 to talk a little bit more about this war between conservatives and libertarians. Coming up next, I'll get to your text messages at 573-319-1586. You don't want to miss a single minute of the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you, Ben.
Enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
As the world faces the challenges of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lions recognize that kindness matters now more than ever. And Lions and Leos are finding ways to continue to serve our communities, including ordering food delivery for healthcare workers, holding story time for children online, and providing surgical masks to medical professionals and first responders. Empowering us to do more, Lions Clubs International Foundation has provided nearly $2.5 million in grant funding for COVID-19 relief. And that support continues to grow. For more than 100 years, in times of need, Lions always find a way to help those around them. And after we emerge from this, we will be stronger than ever. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Good morning at 7:55. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. Don't forget to check out all of our streaming channels. We are up on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, streaming live on wakeupamericashow.com. We're glad to have all of these multi-streaming capabilities these days. So if you say, I don't like big tech, I don't want to watch on that platform, we made it available for you on pretty much everywhere else. If you have a suggestion for where else you think we should be streaming the morning show, you can send it in as a text, 573-319-1586. Tell us a little bit about what you think we should be streaming the platform on and why, and I would love to share that with you. But first, before we get to Camelia Peterson, who's going to be joining us in a few minutes, I wanted to share with you, and I was reading this the other day. This is not the Halloween version of my new favorite magazine. This is Flip City Magazine, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. So when I was growing up, I used to love to read Cracked magazine, and I think my mom and dad didn't want me to read it because I think they caught me once with it, and it's always, usually they've got really gross illustrations in it, right? It's a hilarious magazine growing up. Cracked was great. Now it's all woke, and I don't even know if they do a print magazine edition anymore, but I want to highly recommend my friends over at Flip City Magazine. The website is flipcitymag.com. And here's the thing. It's very politically incorrect. It's not the kind of thing that you're going to find on your store shelves. Let me show you why. See that? See that right there? Look at that. See those topics on the back of the magazine? You know, you're not going to find something like that on your store shelves these days. It's decidedly anti-woke comic book goodness. Flip City Magazine is my new favorite magazine, and they are I'm proud to have them as a sponsor of the Wake Up America show. You can get a subscription at flipcitymag.com. That's flipcitymag.com. I wanted to make sure that I was talking about them today because I really loved it. I laughed the whole way through it. I just got the Halloween edition, and I will give you a peep of that one, but it's very funny. So if you're looking for something, if you liked Cracked or if you liked Mad Magazine growing up, but you're sick and tired of all the woke nonsense, definitely check out Flip City Mag at flipcitymag.com. All right, what else have we got coming up on the show? We've got Camelia Peterson joining us at 8:03. She's going to talk to us today about why libertarianism was trending on Twitter yesterday. Spoiler alert, it's not good. But when has it ever been good to be trending on Twitter? It's not. And at 8:35 this morning, it's Big Brain Time with JD Tuccili from Reason Magazine to talk about the prepper mindset, why it thrived before, during, and now after the pandemic, and how even the government apparently wants to get you into this mindset. We're going to talk about all that and more on the Wake Up America show when we get back at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bullshit is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bullshit is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Any real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning. It's 8:02. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Lots more great show to go. We've got Camelia Peterson joining us here in just a minute to talk about why libertarianism was trending on Twitter yesterday. Spoiler alert, it's not that great. And then at 8:35, JD Tuccili from Reason Magazine will join us. It's big brain time at 8:30. We're going to talk to him a little bit about why the prepper mindset was so successful before, during, and now after the pandemic. All that and more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Joining me now on the phone is my good friend, Camelia Peterson. Camelia, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
Good. Well, glad to have you here this morning. So, Camelia, I guess, can I get you to respond first to the interview with Spike? Was there anything there that stood out to you?
No, it was Spike. It's always good. I will say, Spike Cohen is the best thing to come out of the 2020 Libertarian presidential ticket. The fact that that elevated him to give him a bigger platform, I think is better for all of us, because I was a little skeptical about Spike when I first started watching him and looking at that ticket. And with some of the people like Vermin Supreme that he'd been associated with before, and I wasn't really sure how seriously to take him. But I went to an event he had one time in St. Louis and met with him and asked him a few questions and listened to him talk. And I was super impressed because he wasn't doing the typical libertarian thing where it's like, cut everything off, cut off the Social Security, it doesn't matter about the old people and the disabled. He had reasonable suggestions. He's very pragmatic. He would identify as an anarchist, but he's very pragmatic in his approach to that. And he is so good at messaging in a way that people can understand and relate to. And he really reaches people of all different persuasions as far as ideologies, and just is a great advocate and messenger for liberty. And I love that, he talked about what they've been doing with the man who got his dog, who got tased, or his dog got tased, and the video footage was concealed. They've not just been talking about this. He's been actually going and showing up and making a difference. I respect that great deal.
Yep. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Camelia Peterson, and you can text the show at 573-319-1586. Camelia, I want to talk to you about why libertarianism was trending on Twitter yesterday. I guess that's my question. Why was it trending on Twitter yesterday?
Apparently Alex Jones doesn't know what libertarian is, and Steven Crowder.
No, I didn't play the clip, but essentially what it is it shows Steven Crowder and Alex Jones said that they are anti-libertarian because libertarians don't say anything about corporate power.
Right. Libertarians have been saying things about corporate power all the time, and particularly when the corporations are in bed with the government. I think what they want is the authoritarian response to that corporate power, and any nuance in there, there's no room for nuance.
Well, there's no room for nuance because the left has no room for nuance, right? So what the conservatives are arguing, and we see this with like CRT, for example, right? And even the Judge Napolitano last week when we talked about, well, should we, in public schools, should we enforce our views in public schools if we can't abolish public schools? He said yes, that we should, but it's kind of like in some ways a slippery slope, and in some ways not. But I mean, like, would the cause of limited government be served by requiring social media platforms to allow limited government people on their platforms? I mean, it's kind of an oxymoron in some sense, but I mean, I'm only one more bad meme away from, not being streaming this show on Facebook, Camelia.
Right. And I think when you point out the rise of platforms like Rumble, that we see those answers coming to issues like this, and that's promising. I think this is a matter of, because I see both sides on this, but it's a matter of where do you draw the line? And the irony in one of the things that this National Conservatism Conference that has been being talked about in terms of, libertarianism too, and the Ron DeSantis kind of authoritarian approach to what, private businesses can and cannot do. And this is becoming more prevalent. And the irony of where do you draw your line? And they tend to be fairly religious in their approach to that authoritarianism. Josh Hawley spoke at that conference and talked a lot about how that the principles America was founded on are primarily biblical. And a lot of the things that he said were true. If he stopped there, that would be fine. But he doesn't stop there. He and a lot of others want to take that further and use the force of government to enforce that, those definitions of morality and require, the Bible to be back in schools. And it makes me think, when you talk about where do you draw your line? Where do you use that authoritarianism? It reminds me of that biblical quote about, what does it profit a man to gain the world if he loses his soul? So do you ditch all of your principles in the name of saving liberty? I don't know. What do you do with that?
It's hard to say, because I'll tell you this, as I grow older and as I've kind of looked back on my mistakes that I've made in my life, I can tell you that, getting involved with politics, if you're going to get involved with politics, there are certain rules that you have to abide by, whether you like them or not. And some of these things are that, you need to keep your cards close to your chest. Some of these are, just basic rules. But then, there are other important rules of things that, naively at the time where, I thought that the right thing to do was to stand up to people who were adjacent to me and to, criticize their approach when I thought that they were wrong, when all that did was alienate me from a tribe and prevent me from, attaining, future goals in order to achieve, more libertarian outcomes. So the problem is that the tribe is more powerful than any one person. We're trying to protect individual liberty. And in order to protect individual liberty, it's going to take a tribe to do it. But by taking an individualistic approach, that, you get crushed. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I think this is the quandary that we face when you come from an individual liberty mindset and philosophy is that you want to leave everybody alone. You want to let people live their lives, do what they want to do. But at the same time, it's a reality that in order to gain that liberty for people, you also have to be able to wield power and to gain power in order to be able to do that. And that's the reality. I think that if we ever stop acknowledging that quandary and stop, pushing back against it, that's where we fall into this trap of just overt authoritarianism.
Agreed. Well, and it's like, so for example, what you just brought up, the whole idea of like, what's the point of having power if you don't use it? That's sort of like the main thrust of the argument that national conservatives are making against libertarians these days. Well, libertarians, they, even if they had power, they wouldn't use it. But I mean, isn't that why we look at the greatness of men like George Washington, right? The argument for why George Washington was a great man, despite his flaws, despite the fact that he held slaves, was that, when he had the opportunity to become a king, he turned it down. When he had the opportunity to basically be president for life over the United States, he decided to step down after 2 terms. He created that precedent of executive power where, he had power, Camelia, but he didn't use it. And I think that, national conservatives and many conservatives who are being swayed by this argument of the will to power are forgetting that the founding father, the father of our country, George Washington, his entire legacy rests on that one single fact. He had power and then he gave it away.
Right. And whenever you talk about what it takes to maintain a society where liberty is the rule, was it John Adams that said that it requires a virtuous people?
Yes.
And so that kind of a decision that Washington made, it's a virtuous decision. Most people don't a whole lot of faith.
Well, and and here's a problem. Let me take this to an extreme, Camellia, because I feel as if we're always being placed in these false binaries. One of the problems, whether you're a progressive leftist or whether you're a right wing Christian nationalist, national conservative, it's always this choice, as if it's a false choice that's being given to you. You have to choose this or you have to choose that. But I'm going to, since they can use that kind of faulty logic, I'm going to use that faulty logic here. But it's almost as if you have to ask this question: would you rather have the country be taken over by fascists? Let's say that the Nazis, you can have child drag shows. You have to either accept a country where there will be children who go to drag shows and have a free country, right, with those kinds of flaws, or you can have no child drag shows, no drag queens, and a national socialist government, right? So, I know that this is a false binary, but again, this is what we're always being given, these false choices here. But I mean, I feel as if that's kind of like, if you were to ask a national conservative, would you rather live in a country that's free and sometimes has child drag shows, or would you rather live in an unfree country where your religion is dominant, but it's a national socialist country and, we all have to live according to Nazi principles? What do you think they would choose?
I think they would choose the latter. We're almost there in many ways, or they're certainly trying to get there. We already have a lot of socialist programs in place. And I mean, even when you talk about our education system, we are having to fight the right on this issue as well, because they want to protect that, they want to control it, and it's a complicated thing. But yeah, I think they would choose the latter.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's because, the freedom has flaws, right? And they're not willing to accept that people who have freedom are going to be free to make bad decisions or wrong decisions. And, I've always been one, especially, as a libertarian presidential candidate, to stand up for the rights of children. And I think that child drag shows are immoral and likely should be illegal. But that doesn't mean that we subvert the Constitution, the rule of law, and that we give up our government to authoritarianism because some people are sick and perverted and twisted. That's not, you can't live in a free society without people making bad decisions. And sometimes they have to pay for those bad decisions, but sometimes evil people don't go punished. Sometimes evil goes unpunished. As a matter of fact, in the early 1900s, when we had the production code here in the United States, we had a very authoritarian crackdown on Hollywood. And one of the rules of the production code was that in every movie that had to be made, if there was an evil character, they had to be punished, because they couldn't allow a movie where a bad guy might get away with it, right? And that's that kind of authoritarian mindset. They can't accept that in a free society, people are going to make mistakes, and some people are going to do bad things. And sometimes they might get away with it, but because we don't punish innocent people in a free society, that is something that you must accept.
Right. And I think it's talked about all the time with everything being a trade-off. Democrats and Republicans criticize libertarians for wanting a utopia. But the truth is that Democrats have their own version of utopia that they want, and Republicans have their own version of utopia that they want, and they're both convinced they can do that through the rule of government. And there are no perfect solutions. One of the things that frustrates me is, and we are seeing this right now at a state level in Missouri, is that we always talk about how the Democrats, as a justification for everything, think of the children. It's for the children. And they use that to put in place all of these things with unintended consequences that end up being terrible and don't help the children at all. But at the same time, there's a conservative flip side to that too. We're seeing it right now when we're talking in our state, in our government special session that they're having, extraordinary session, that they are looking at tax cuts and tax credits. And when we talk about tax credits specifically for the agricultural industry, that's kind of like Missouri's sacred cow, in that you don't criticize the ag industry, and they say that it is the largest industry in Missouri. And when you talk about whether or not we need to give tax credits, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about it across the board on principle. They say, well, we like to eat. we can't let this fail, because people will starve. And they use the very same kind of rationale that the opposing side uses to get what they want through.
Right. Yeah. I just posted a tweet over at AP for Liberty, and it was the question that I asked you, Camelia. Now people are voting. There's 17 votes so far. And it was to choose between kids' drag shows or National Socialism. So at the moment, National Socialism is winning with 52% of the vote. You can vote over by joining over at AP for Liberty, AP, the number 4, AP for Liberty. And you can put your vote in there right now at AP for Liberty. Would you rather have a country that's free, but sometimes they have kids at drag shows, or would you rather live under a Nazi government? It looks as if people would rather live under a Nazi government. Camelia, what does that say about the position of the right? One listener just texted in at 573-319-1586 and said, freedom is like a four-way stop. There are no cops there, but most drivers of every ilk do the right thing anyway. They take their turn. Sure, there are crashes on occasion, so should we put a cop at every intersection? That's a great way to put it as well. I don't know.
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
Funny then. When you talk, this reminds me, my younger daughter makes fun of me if I come to a complete stop at a deserted intersection. Rolling up through it.
Camelia does the right thing anyway. What about you? Again, send us a text 573-319-1586. I guess there's the question of the day right there. Send me a text and tell me, would you rather live in a free country that sometimes had kids at drag shows, or would you rather live under a Nazi government? Send me your response in, or you can answer over on Twitter. I want to hear from you. And when we get back, I'll read your chats. Camelia Peterson, editor of the libertarianrepublic.com. You did a great job today. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you. You as well. Boy, isn't that a ridiculous thing to discuss? Well, you know what? That is the question. If we're always being given these false binary choices, right? So then what's the solution? Right? If the problem is that, some people are going to take their freedom and do bad things, I guess freedom is the problem, right? The reason why people take kids to drag shows is because of too much freedom, right? Freedom is almost always the problem to the authoritarian mindset. As for me, give me liberty or give me death. We've got lots more great content to go. Big Brain Time coming up at 8:35 with JD Tuccille. You don't want to miss a single minute of the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband Paul made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you? No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
In case you didn't already know, the British monarchy, unlike its non-royal constituents, is legally exempt from paying income tax, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax. A specific British statute allows inheritance to pass from, quote, sovereign to sovereign without being taxed, to avoid depleting the royal family's wealth if two monarchs die in quick succession. Therefore, King Charles will not have to pay the regularly applied 40% tax on the $300 million plus fortune he has inherited from the Queen, but he has chosen to follow his mother's lead in voluntarily paying income tax. The monarchy cost British taxpayers the equivalent of $118 million during 2021, a 17% increase from the previous fiscal year, according to figures for the Sovereign Grant, which funds the Queen, now King, and the household's official expenses.
Morning, it's 8:26. Welcome to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Thanks for tuning in. You can text the program today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We've got a lot of great responses to my question. It's a false binary, but that's what we always get. It's like you have to choose between this or that. It's either this or it's either that. I posted a little poll over on my Twitter account this morning. You can check it out at AP4Liberty. And the poll was to choose between child drag shows, kids at drag shows, or National Socialism. So you have to choose, do you want to live in a free society where people will sometimes take their kids to drag shows? Or would you rather live in a society where there are no kids showing up at any drag shows, there are no drag shows, there are no gay people, there are no Jews, National Socialism. So if you had to choose, right? And I honestly feel like, even as ridiculous as this kind of like false binary choice is that it does a really good job at kind of showing how we're always given this false choice. And it helps to sort of lay out the attacks that conservatives are making on libertarians as if it's libertarians' fault that, you know, progressives are taking their kids to drag shows. But it also asks us, you know, when I was thinking about it last night, because I wanted to, you know, think about what I would talk about today, I was thinking about the question of the price of freedom. And when if you were to ask a conservative, if a school shooting, for example, is the price of freedom, right? We're not going to give up our Second Amendment rights. Go with me on this one. We're not going to give up our Second Amendment rights because there's a school shooting, right? Right? Because in a free society, we're not going to punish innocent people in order to go after the guilty, right? Because we don't go and punish law-abiding gun owners for them not having anything to do with the crime, right? It's just, and so for the same reason here in the United States, we don't ban drag shows because some people take their kids to the drag shows, right? Because some people are innocent. They haven't committed any crime. So it's that same concept. So if you can see how this concept applies to your Second Amendment rights, then you can see how it applies to this issue of drag shows, where, people in a free society are going to do things that are wrong, things that are bad. And the question is, are you willing to accept the price of freedom, which is paid sometimes in the blood of the innocent? And that's going to be the main thrust of my discussion, actually, when I go to Missouri State University at the end of October, my alma mater. The concept that I'm putting my speech together around is my speech in Springfield, Springfield, Missouri, for those of you who are out of state, is going to be the price of liberty. And the price of liberty not paid for, and most conservatives would say, oh, well, the price of liberty paid for in the lives of, the soldiers and the police. I'm not talking about the price of liberty being paid for by people who work for the government. I'm talking about the price of liberty that is paid for in innocent lives, right? Ask yourself this. How many, innocent bystanders do you think were killed in the American Revolution? Right? Probably not as many as in our modern wars, but there were probably innocent bystanders, right? Now, answer me this. Was that part of the price of liberty? Did the innocents who were killed in the American Revolution, innocent bystanders who just happened to be walking across the field when a volley happened to kill them for, whatever reason? A lot less innocent bystanders used to die in wars, by the way. They were much less destructive. But the price of liberty isn't always paid for by soldiers and police. It's sometimes paid for in the lives or the blood of the innocent. And if you want to live in a free society, then you have to accept that sometimes innocent people will pay that price in order for the rest of us to be able to remain free. Right? You're still going to have people, there's still going to be wars and problems. If you lived under we saw how National Socialism actually did when it came to, protecting people's rights or liberty, or even, protecting religious liberty or anything like that. It was god awful at it. And so of course, it's a false binary in choosing between, kids' drag shows or National Socialism. The reality is something, in between. But in looking at this false binary, I think it helps us to paint a picture of how we're given false binaries in this society and how we're forced to choose between two evils in many ways. So I think it's something for us to think about. We can put it on the back burner, and I'll reapproach it again at the end of this show. Coming up next is JD Tuccili, who wants to talk to us a little bit about the prepper mindset, how preppers manage to do well before, during, and after the pandemic, and also why the government actually encourages you to be a prepper. All that and more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Diddy's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bullshit is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bullshit is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Dee Dee really likes it. Dee Dee said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, it's 8:36, and I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching the Wake Up America show, and it's time to rise in freedom. My next guest is JD2 Chili, joining me on the phone right now to talk about the prepper mindset and why even the government has been encouraging it. Good morning, JD. How are you this morning, sir?
Doing well, sir, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on, JD. I read your piece over at Reason Magazine the other day about why it's a good idea to embrace a bit of a prepper mindset for the next emergency. And you say even the government approves, which if the government approves, JD, then I guess I'm against it.
You know, that's my natural reaction, I got to tell you. So when the government declares a National Preparedness Month, and I'll note that September is National Preparedness Month, I'm like, all right. They're talking about themselves, I assume, as something we should be preparing against. And actually, I think that when they tell us that we should be ready to take care of ourselves, we ought to take them seriously. If we look reasonably close to home, Puerto Rico, I think there's a great case in that, in evidence right there. And there's nothing that Puerto Rico can do about the fact that it's in Hurricane Alley and the storms are going to keep coming. There's an awful lot of political decision making that goes into the mess that prevails in Puerto Rico every time the storm goes through. and the power is out there for many of the residents. Now, 5 years ago, Hurricane Maria sounded, the warning bell on this, pointing out that the power grid in Puerto Rico was simply inadequate for the weather conditions they experience on a regular basis, and nothing has happened in 5 years. At this point, National Preparedness Month, the government is telling you, be prepared to take care of yourself. That's because government officials aren't up to the job and generally make things worse. If you live in Puerto Rico, among many other places, you really ought to be assuming that you have to look to your own resources, help your neighbors, seek, go to them for help, and work with your community and not count on officialdom to make sure the world's going to be a better place for you, because they're not going to do it.
If you'd like to text the show, if you have a question for JD, you can send one in at 573-319-1586. JD, if there's one thing I can say is that the people who were right when COVID hit, it was the preppers, because with the toilet paper shortages and all the other issues that people had, the stockpiling that was going on during the pandemic, when people found out that they wouldn't be able to grab toilet paper, I think a lot of libertarian-minded people like ourselves were probably sitting back and saying to themselves, wow, we really did the right thing in getting ourselves stocked and ready. But these kinds of emergencies, they don't have to be just once every 100 years pandemics. There can be a lot of things, like the power outages in California might be another example of people needing to get prepared, because let's face it, JD, the government doesn't really have our best interests at heart, does it?
It doesn't have our best interests at heart. It doesn't share our priorities, and it just doesn't have a level of competence, even when they have that occasional good official there. What's the old saying? Don't assume malice when incompetence will explain it. It altogether, that's enough. What really matters is that it's not going to be there to help you out when the times are tough. And it can be international disaster with supply chain disruptions. It can be something local. We get nasty storms here that knock power out for a couple of days. And so you need to look to your family's health and safety and just being able to keep fit. Do you have the ability to have clean water available if something happens like it happened in Jackson, Mississippi, where the water supply becomes unreliable? Do you have a means of keeping your refrigerator cold so you can keep your food in there, your milk safe, any medications that need refrigeration safe to use? Do you have at least, 2 weeks of food in the pantry so that if the markets can't get supply, you've got some cans and then pull out and at least make a meal? Some of this stuff is pretty basic. So when you talk about preparing for bad times, it's not some magic checkpoint you got to hit. It's about kind of a mindset of knowing that things aren't always good, that hurricane comes, the power grid goes down, the disruption happens to your baby food or to your medication, and that you have backup. You've got a means of getting through that tough time. And you don't rely on others to do it for you. You don't wait for them to come and rescue you, because they may not be able to. They may not want to. You don't know for sure. But you can help yourself. You can help your neighbors to make it easier and to make sure you get through times that we think now are disruptions. But in the past, even as recently as our grandparents' time, hard times were what you expected. Usually the good times were rare.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to JD Tuccille, at 573-319-1586. JD, I read your story over on Reason about the new gun store tracking code, how it deputizes private firms to do the government's bidding. And I'm going to apply this to another conversation that we've been having on the program today about national conservatives accusing libertarians of being responsible for, all of the evils of the world, from child drag shows to big tech censorship, et cetera. But this is probably another one of those examples where, NatCons, as I like to call them for short, would say, hey, here's an example. Libertarians don't have an answer for this. These are private companies that are acting privately. There wasn't a law that was passed that required these companies to do this. They're just choosing to do it anyway. And in essence, it's creating a sense, sort of a backhand gun registry. What's the libertarian response to this, JD?
Well, the libertarian response is that, sure, private firms can be dangerous, but this did not happen spontaneously. In a free world, it's not like all the officers of private corporations think alike and act in lockstep. The reason you see these things come down is because behind the scenes, the government is leaning on them. This new merchant code that comes from the banking industry happened after a very political union-controlled bank lobbied on multiple occasions and then drew in members of the Senate and the House of Representatives and other prominent politicians to lean on the banking industry to come up with a merchant code that would identify gun shops specifically. The banks, the banking industry as a whole, beyond this one very politicized bank, didn't have an interest in doing this. But the government comes in there, says, we want this banking code. We want all of you in, by the way, this heavily regulated industry to do what we say and to use this code to implement by the back door this policy that we haven't been able to implement through the legislature or may not be allowed to implement because it's unconstitutional. The process is called jawboning. The Cato Institute actually had a recent paper up on it. When government basically says, nice little company you got there, be ashamed if anything happened to it. And they kind of imply that you're going to get a lot of regulatory scrutiny. You're going to be subject to unfriendly legislation if you don't do what politicians want you to do. And what they want you to do is politicize the conduct of your industry, to refuse to serve certain businesses, to shun others, to identify some transactions that politicians in the future can use that to disfavor whoever does things they don't want being done. We saw this a few years ago with the Obama era plan, Operation Choke Point, where these were perfectly legal industries like payday lenders, adult entertainment, also gun dealers again, where the Obama administration went to the banking industry and said, we know these things are not illegal and we might want to ban them, but we can't. But we're going to tell you, again, you heavily regulated industry subject to our whims if we're having a bad mood, that we want you to make it difficult for these businesses to get banking services. And sure enough, the bankers complied. So can private enterprise be dangerous? Potentially. I mean, could they deny you services? Sure. This is a country of 330 million people. Do you think they all decide at the same time to act the same way? They're doing it because behind the scenes, government officials are jawboning them, threatening to use the regulatory state against them unless they serve as political weapons and do the bidding of politicians.
Now, when we say jawboning, what we're talking about here, this is a reference to the Bible when it was, I can't remember, was it Samson used the jawbone of an ass to kill 1,000 Philistines or something like that? But is the concept supposed to be here that, you're beating them to death with like something blunt, right? You're not like, instead of like stabbing them using the force of the law, that you're just using more of a blunt object to kill them with? Is that kind of like how we got to that term?
Well, I mean, the term jawboning has evolved. I mean, we know where it came from, but it's become something where you jawbone somebody, which means that you kind of verbally lean on them. We're talking about implied threats. So when you jawbone an industry, you're threatening to use the power of government, a blunt instrument, unless they serve the government as a tool. So the industry is nominally private, but it's serving a public capacity here, because the government is threatening to use regulation, legislation, just the power of the state. The state has an enormous amount of power to make your life unpleasant if it wants to, against often heavily regulated industries, finance being a really great case in point here. So the jawboning in this case comes from kind of that colloquial term for just kind of talking someone's head off and leaning on them, threatening them verbally to get them to do what you want.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to JD2 Chili at 573-319-1586. Feel free to text us in at that number again, 573-319-1586. JD, I think I know how you're going to answer this question, but let me set it up for you and think about it for a moment in light of the context of the sort of false binaries, the false choices that we are frequently given, you have to choose either this or that. You must be left or you must be right. You have to live in a country that has this, or you have to live in a country that has that. And we've been talking about this in context today for, the kids at drag shows, child drag shows, kids being brought up on stage and, seeing nudity in public performances and things like that. Things that you and we've talked about before, we would never allow our kids to go and see. But I posted a poll on Twitter as a sort of a way to illustrate this, and where people have to choose between a free country where kids are at drag shows and those things happen, or national socialism, right? Where there are no kids drag shows, right? Well, National Socialism, with 227 votes, National Socialism is edging it out. 53.7% of my respondents, of whom a majority I would say are probably libertarians and conservatives, chose National Socialism rather than live in a country where kids sometimes appear at drag shows. Is the price of freedom living in a free country, JD, that sometimes kids will be exploited in this way?
Yeah, it is. I mean, unfortunately, the price of freedom, and this is a problem because a lot of Americans, I think we discovered, you do polls like this, and we've got other polls elsewhere, talk about people's openness to free speech. Now, how enthusiastic are they about speakers they disagree with being allowed to speak in public? Americans are losing their taste for letting other people live, think, and speak differently. And I think that we have to remember that freedom originally wasn't just for for everybody who thinks the way we do. It was a truce. It was a cultural truce that says, I acknowledge there are a lot of people who think and live differently than I do. And if I want to be left alone, I have to leave them alone. And that's the only way freedom works, is if we acknowledge that it's a big world full of very different people who we might not like in person. And unfortunately, we meet them on Twitter. But who we might not like in person, but we've got to let them live their way. They're going to let us live our way. Otherwise, yeah, you get that National Socialism, but you don't know who's going to be pulling the levers or if it's going to be the same people each time. And we just have a sea change of where that authoritarianism comes from. So freedom does mean we've got to tolerate stuff that we don't like. Fundamentally, that's what it means. But by the same token, that means we get to live our lives our way.
It's an interesting quandary and a dilemma. Certainly, it's difficult to be a libertarian, JD, because so many of our solutions are quite unpopular. It's sort of like with gun control, the question of, should you punish innocent people when someone goes out and commits a mass murder? And, how can you as a politician go out and say, well, dead children at a school is the price that we pay to live in a free society? But I mean, that's essentially what we're saying when it comes to, kids will sometimes be at drag shows. That we're also, subsequently, we're also saying that sometimes kids are going to die in mass shootings, and that is the price of freedom, is it not?
Unfortunately, it's easy to show what the cost of freedom is. It's harder to show what you lost when you give up freedom, because you live in an authoritarian society and stuff happens and you say, I wish I'd had a gun to defend myself during that crime that took place, even though we live in an authoritarian society. People will do this around you. We'll all look at you and say, but it would have been so much worse if you did. Well, now they're posing an unknown. We do know that people defend themselves on a daily basis. A recent report came out talking about self-defense, how often it's actually used, firearms, to defend people, but it never makes the news. What we do see are the failures, the catastrophes, the misuses of freedom. It is real easy to point to someone publishing something awful or doing something terrible, because these are transgressions. These are things that offend us. It is really difficult to point to the costs of authoritarianism unless they're extremely overt. The lost opportunities, the crimes that are committed anyway, the crushing of options, choices, freedom of prosperity, because those just become the norms. You live marinating in that kind of a background. So yeah, freedom can be a tough sell, and I think in the end we have to point out that yes, freedom has a cost, but the costs of authoritarianism, all the alternatives, are so much worse, and that's why we choose freedom, not because it's perfect, but because it's so much better than everything else.
I think it's because I see that logic, JD, and because I know it to be true, and because I'm incapable of lying to people, that I'm never going to run for office ever again, because I know that with that attitude, you will absolutely lose an election. JD Too Chilly, a writer at Reason Magazine, editor as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. You take care.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, man. So that's it. Never running for office again. Sorry to disappoint some of the people out there. I think I'll stay in the media business. Wonder what you think about it. Isn't that really the problem? That the left says, well, kids are dying in mass shootings. We need authoritarian communism. And the right says kids are being exploited at drag shows. We need National Socialism, right? No, we need freedom, right? We need to live in a free society and accept that the price of freedom is sometimes paid for in ways by the innocent. And you can't run for office and say things like that, because it's true. The truth hurts. What do you think about it? I got to hear your input on this. I'm just dying to hear from you. I haven't been able to check the live stream comments. I'm going to head over there during the commercial break. I've got to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you, whether or not you agree with me, send me a text 573-319-1586, and I will read your responses when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you, God.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I...
Good morning, 8:55. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. 5 minutes left on this great program. And before I get into my final discussion to close out this morning, I want to ask you for a favor, just one thing to do for me today. If you don't have an account on Rumble just yet, would you set one up and head over there and follow me? If you do have an account on Rumble already, I'd appreciate it if you would go over there and follow my page. I'm AP for Liberty over on Rumble. You can find me at rumble.com/AP for Liberty, and I would be super grateful if you would follow me over there. And I'll tell you, I didn't get to talk about this a little bit earlier, but I did decide to invest my own hard-earned money into the video sharing platform yesterday because despite some of the complaints that people have about them, I have to say that they do have a little bit better moderation platform over there versus what you have on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, you have to understand, if you're listening to this show on any of the other social networks this morning, YouTube or Facebook. Now, YouTube, I haven't really struggled with as much, although I will now, soon, once I become monetized on that platform. But that I'm just, hanging by a thread on Facebook, Twitter. I don't have as many violations over there, but I'm sure one day they are going to pull the plug on people like myself. I think that I'll probably do better on platforms like Rumble. So I'd like to ask, if you wouldn't mind, head over to Rumble, type in AP for Liberty, and follow me over there on that platform if you're not already. If you don't have an account, start one. I do believe in a future for them. I've invested my own money. I'm going to invest my own time into them to make that platform one of my premier locations where I'm going to stream to. Lots of exciting things happening with the Wake Up America show. I've got a lot of big deals and things that are in the works behind the scenes, some major announcements that are going to be coming down the pike, more programming just like the Wake Up America show, little teasers like that I can tell you are going to be coming soon, all kinds of upgrades and things like that. So if you're not a supporter of the show yet, I could certainly use your financial support today by going to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. If you're not a member of Peterson's Patriots, pledge $17.76 a month to help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. If that's too much for you, I totally get it. We do have a $5 plan. You can be a Freedom Ninja as well. Head over there to the Don't Tread on AP is the $5 level, and I think $10 a month is the Freedom Ninja level. Could really use your financial support to help us to build out. Also, I want to say one thing. Yesterday, my good friend Aaron Abel, which if you don't know, Aaron Abel was always a listener of this show, and he was a good friend of mine. He supported my 2018 U.S. Senate campaign. He passed away recently from cancer, and I met with his dad yesterday, who he had a big box of audio-video equipment that he gave to me for me to use. So some of the equipment that I'm going to be adding here will be from my dear departed friend, who I think would have just absolutely loved the fact that I would be making use of that equipment for this program. So I want to say thank you to his dad, John Abel, and of course, thank you to the dear departed Aaron Abel for the donation of that equipment. We're certainly very grateful. Step up just like Aaron did in spirit and make a generous donation today at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Rest in peace to Aaron Abel. He was a good friend. He was a member of the Cantina crew. Big shout out to the Cantina crew. Thank you for your support. There's a good hardcore group of about 20 to 30 people who are the big time supporters of this program, who like to tune in and watch every morning, who donate every month. And I am sincerely grateful for you, because without you, we would not be able to have the Wake Up America show. Technical glitches and all, things will get better. We will continue to improve, and lots of exciting news is coming on the horizon. Can't give away too much yet, but you don't want to miss a single episode of the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
It's morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire. Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.